Alright, welcome to another episode, everyone. What we're doing today is replacing the rear struts on the Subaru Forester. Now in this case, this video will be a how-to on removing the rear struts. I'm not going to show on how to reinstall them just because in this case we're swapping the stock unit out for a WRX suspension. And I'm going to have a separate video specifically for that. But if you're looking to keep the stock OEM part, it's just the exact opposite to reinstall it. If you are a little curious on how to reinstall everything, just look under my page. I'm going to have a separate video specifically showing on how to swap out the stock unit for a WRX suspension. And that's about it. So that being said, let's go ahead. Let's begin. The first step is here we need to remove the lug nuts. Now, if you don't have an impact gun, what you can use is one of the lug nut removal tools that come with your vehicle. Get yourself a piece of pipe. Place the lug nut wrench over the lug nut, place the pipe over the end, and just torque it. Now make sure your parking brake is on when you do this, or chuck the wheels. Now the lower strut is held on by these two lower nuts. Now these tend to be on very tight, especially if your car, think about it, if the car is 10, 15 years old, just imagine how tight these guys are going to be. Now what you can use is WD-40 or PB Blaster, but the one thing I definitely recommend is get yourself a breaker bar. As you can see, it's very, very long. This will give you a lot of leverage to loosen up these bolts. Now this happens to be 3/4 of an inch, or if you're using metric, 19 millimeters. Just place the breaker bar with the socket over the bolt, and then I'll use a wrench to hold the opposite side, because the opposite side here will tend to move. And then go ahead and loosen it up. As you can see, using the breaker bar is a huge help. You don't need any air tools, and it just makes the job a lot easier. And the one thing I always recommend is use good hand tools. Don't use any cheap stuff, because you can strip out the bolts and now you have a much bigger problem. So get good quality tools, Craftsman, Snap-on, Lowe's, Home Depot has Husky, whatever works. Just make sure it's good quality. And in the meantime, I am going to leave just one lower bolt here attached to the strut. And that's because when we remove the top bolts, I don't want this strut falling on any brake lines. So just keep one bolt in the meantime attached to the strut. And then we have these top mounts. These happen to be 12 millimeter, and you have 3 of them. So go ahead and just remove all 3. Now before we remove the strut, what you want to make sure is that any components tied into the strut has been removed. So in this case we have a brake line that's attached to the strut, as you can see right here. Now this is held on by one clip. So what you're going to do is get a flathead screwdriver, place it underneath, because we need to push up or push out the clip. Get a hammer, and I'll tap the bottom of the screwdriver. And that's it. And when you remove the strut, just be careful, because there's an ABS sensor line. You don't want to nick that. It is very tight. Just be careful and you'll be successful in removing it. Ugh. All right, we're in good shape.